So I have it at 6 o'clock, and in the interest of everyone's time, I just want to start on time. I want to thank everyone for coming out, the folks in the room that braved the cold. Thank you so much for being here, so friendly faces. And I wanted to ask who's streaming live with us tonight?
We have Amy, and we have Deborah, Elizabeth, Faye, Jay.
So a group of you on there, some of you I know, hello, thank you so much for making time to join. And we may have a couple other folks that we're going to try to join via Zoom. So a good mixture. The talk topic today comes from work that Sarah, who's one of the folks in the audience here, has been instrumental in as well. We have been designing website pages that eventually will go up on IPCA's website and be a really useful tool for networking and engagement and research across all levels for clinicians, students, clients, academics, and current researchers and future researchers. And with that, we wanted to do a pre-launch review to get more input and to share all of the good work. And you'll see the task force members, there's about a dozen people that are part of this, and you'll see their names, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But as a topic, we have some learning objectives. This cover photo has Clive Pye in his lab. He's a pretty well-known PT researcher. And then we also have Tanvi Bhatt's lab, and some of our research staff there, and also one of our federal representatives, Congressman Roskam, who came out and visited the research lab. So we piqued his curiosity, and he showed us good interest and came and spent a couple of hours learning about all of the great research that's going on. Many of the researchers at UIC who live in his district. So it was kind of a nice tie into some other good works going on. So our objectives is the next slide. We do have objectives, and there is a CE for this, or 2 CEs. We're going to make sure that when you leave, you will understand how recent legislation is affecting funding for PT, and also the focus of a lot of studies you're probably seeing or might be interested in starting. Current PT research in the qualitative and quantitative domain. So just kind of breaking apart some of the bigger chunks of what kind of research is out there as related to what you might read in the PT journal and other journals. The third objective, how the IPCA, the Illinois academic programs, and the Foundation for Physical Therapy are working to strategically enhance opportunities for people to do researchers. And I would emphasize that a big piece of this is new researchers and clinicians that want to do research and have a good question to be answered. There's a lot out there, a lot of good minds and good institutions in Illinois in particular. I think we're really lucky to be in Illinois with some of the things that are out there. And then the fourth objective is costs and benefits for pursuing funded versus unfunded research, because those are the kind of questions that just seem relevant that might come up depending on where you're at as you're joining in or going to our website. So I hope you like those objectives, and we'll work to make sure we answer those. With that, as I'm presenting both online, you can type in your question and Matthew will cue me and we can have some stopping points to get questions answered. And in the room, please just kind of flag and I'll stop talking and let you interject a question or some feedback or ideas that you might want to add. The next slide here talks about our terms. So this just briefly goes through, what is research? Truly, it's just investigating or searching on a topic. That truly is the background of the word. And next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the origin, and it goes all the way back to 1577, and it comes from the Middle French, which is kind of interesting as well. So just kind of a brief background there. The elements of research, typically it starts with a hypothesis or a research question. So having that good question as a student, as a clinician, there's those different points in time that you stop and say, I wonder about, that could be the beginning of creating a really good question. Now, That also could be something that leads to a lit search and you answer your question. It could be something a lot simpler that already exists. But that question truly is the basis of all great research, is having a really great question. And designing a really great question is a skill that gets honed by researchers. And again, in Illinois, we do have an excellent bank of PT researchers and researchers in general to help hone those questions and those skills. Next comes the literature search and creating a statement. So an aim statement, the purpose and what this study would add to the body of literature and the knowledge base. And then the methods to roll out that study. What will it look like? What will the pieces be to make sure that things get executed in a way that are consistent, it's replicable and generalizable, and somebody can go back in and redo this study and get the same results if the null hypothesis is not disproved or is disproved. The relevance and importance to the body of knowledge, as I mentioned, and then budget, timeline, staff, and dissemination. So especially with a funded study, that last piece becomes a really important piece. Okay. Next one, if you're working in clinical research or in any industry, there's a lot of process improvement. So process improvement and research have a lot of things in common, and yet there's also some differences. So I felt like this slide is just a nice pausing point to say, well, are what we doing, is what we're doing a quality improvement, or could this really be research? Because it might make you pause and say, hey, before we begin, if we take these extra steps, this would be proven. So if it's research, the subjects aren't expected to have a direct gain from the knowledge that will be gleaned from the study. And also that there's additional risks or burdens beyond the standard practice. So with that, very often, hello, we've got someone joining us, welcome. So with that, it's important that we're protecting human subjects, and there's a group called the Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative, and there's something that researchers typically will go through and have to repeat on a regular basis to make sure that they understand how to protect human subjects and that they're not crossing boundaries for that reason. And also an internal review board. Typically any institution that you're working at, if it's a larger institution, has an institutional review board. It is a separate entity, and they're there to look at the facts of the research and decide if there are burdens that are unnecessary or if there's not enough safeguards in place. And then they will constantly be checking if you change something in your research study. It's an added step that you have to truly follow out your methodology, which includes everything from flyers and postings to, oh, well, we were going to just post it in the hospital, but now we want to post it on our website or go out to another institution. Those are things that then you are making changes and they go through that institutional review board. But it's nice because it keeps you on that path and it makes you truly follow the research and methodology that you've set out. So if it's quality improvement, the knowledge should be of direct benefit to the institution and the people using the services. And it probably doesn't have it probably does not have the risks or the added burden to the people that you're measuring. So it might be the services in my clinic. I want to see how people like the front desk services. And then the benefit is that we're going to use that data and it'll benefit them when they come back. They'll get better services that they're happier with. That would be a great example of a quality improvement. Now that may or may not be generalizable, and both can be so that's where there is a lot of crossover. So with that, I want to go into talking about some of the legislation. So one of the objectives, again, is to talk about how the legislative changes are changing funding sources and amounts and direction. And so one of the real big recent ones, of course, is the Accountable Care Act. So in 2010, I think everybody knows about the Accountable Care Act came up, and it has a lot of moving parts, many of which we've been hearing about in the news. And all of those have research implications. There's also funds that are tied to those. So So some of the highlights that I put up here is to increase the health insurance quality and affordability, lower the uninsured rate, reduce costs of healthcare for individuals in the government. That's kind of a big one that has a lot of moving parts on its own. Pay for performance, so PQRS and all of that good stuff that continues to have forward momentum, and increase competition, regulation, and incentives to streamline delivery of care, which I think just reading that, it's just chock full of research items and funding that would support those items, right? If you're going to increase competition, comparative analysis of one service over another, or one approach to treat the same thing as another. How much did it cost? How many visits? What were the outcomes? Is one better than the other? Also, the streamlining delivery is another area that there can be some really good studies, and there are some ongoing studies. Tied to that, and helping to actually put some of the moving pieces into a little bit more clarity, is the Health and Education Reconciliation Act. So that really works with the ACA, and it starts to give more specifics. And this also touches on education. I'm not losing my word, for student loans. So this has a lot of implications, as does the ACA. So that's where the education piece comes in there in a very meaningful way. Another hot topic that you've seen a lot of legislation, a lot on the news, directly tied to this, to these two pieces of legislation. Another recent piece of legislation that I think has made a lot of headlines and influenced a lot of studies and funding is the Brain Injury Act. So it originally came out in 1990s, although there was a shell of it, I think going back to the late 70s. But we've all seen a lot of really good work going on, including in the NFL on brain injury, also on children and concussion, and assessing people for mild brain injury. A lot of that's coming from the fact that there's this big legislation and funding, and these questions that people are asking for this data. This also has ties to the military. A lot of our veterans are getting these IED explosions, and there's the really obvious injuries that come from that. But then there's also a concussive, kind of unique brain injury effect that the military is also very interested in studying, and that ties in with the Brain Injury Act as well. They want to partner more, and they want to learn from the private sector and use that to help our veterans preemptively, and also for the veterans that have already suffered brain injury. That's really unique to the situations that they get exposed to. On this slide, you see I've mentioned some of the dollar amounts, and then also the ties to the healthcare research agencies. But it is those agencies, Medicare, Medicaid, Health and Human Services, that then operationalize that. And that's where a lot of those pieces you hear in the news are down at our level, where it's like, yep, I know what that makes my life feel different at work. This next slide is something that I think everybody in this room probably knows about and online. And I'm seeing some head nods, so that's good. This is a lot of the data gets collected, and a lot of the think tanks in Washington pull it all together and try to steer legislation and monies to make better healthcare, to hit all those objectives, that some of which the bullet points in the ACA list out. So Healthy People 2020 was the most recent set, and the leading health indicators is something that comes from all of the data of where to put the money, where to put the emphasis, where we have the most opportunity to improve as a nation. So with that, you see some things mentioned in here, the National Prevention Strategy mandated by the Affordable Care Act. So you'll see these things start to tether together. Next slide talks about the 2010. So every 10 years, and actually midway through, they do an assessment. So these are stepwise progressions. They do add elements, and they do monitor ongoing. How have we done in 5 years into the 10-year window? And then is there a course correction? Are there changes that we need to do based on how we're doing? And it also is a nice way to just kind of take a temperature. We're doing really well improving on stroke, maybe, but maybe not on smoking cessation. So you can see where, okay, something we're doing right, we want to keep doing that. This area, we don't seem to be changing the numbers in a good way, so maybe we need to do something different, something more. This list just kind of puts up the 10 leading health indicators from the 2010. There's a few that were also added since then. But as you read this list, I think the overarching takeaway I get is just how much these tie in with what we do. You know, working with people. If you read this list and talk about physical activity among adolescents, overweight adults, obesity in children and adolescents, you think about our wellness initiatives, you think about physical therapy, how we educate people throughout the continuum and empower them, tying it to the Healthy People 2010 and 2020 leading health indicators is a really nice thing to do as well, because it's something that our nation is trying to influence. It makes a big difference on the health of our nation. So health insurance is on there, immunization, smoking is a big one, and violence, mental health, responsible sexual behavior, and substance abuse. So all of those items, which again, I saw some head nods, but as physical therapists, we have such an opportunity to make an impact on those initiatives. Just listed in here, I listed a more thorough list out, just to get a quick snapshot, and it adds some other items in there: arthritis and osteoporosis, chronic back pain. So even more good stuff that we do. Again, because it's in there, it means that there's funding and there's people that really want to see studies. So there's a lot of momentum that you can be joining if your research question or your hypothesis fits with any of those. That's even more reason to say, please roll up your sleeves and look into that. So another one of our objectives talked about funded versus unfunded. So what are the pros and cons of that? If I'm working somewhere and I'm not in a big research institution, and I have a good question, and I feel good about rolling up my sleeves, and I'm able to put that together, I might then decide, do I go through the IRB, which is always a good thing to do if you can, but it's not a reason not to do research if you don't have an IRB access. And then also, do I pursue funding or not? Some of the pros of doing non-funded is if it is a small study, maybe it's a case study with one patient, and you really don't have a lot of those resources, but you've got some of your books, and you can go online and pull some good information, and also the background that you got in your PT education to put together that study question and create your methodology and get that ready where you can publish that. Having the extra hurdles if you don't have people that you're able to access to help with the funding and to do the writing things up in those styles can be the way to really move your study forward. So when those are going to be too burdensome for somebody, I think that there are times when it's really beneficial to pursue non-funded research. And an example of that, and this actually comes from my own personal experience, working with researchers, put on something that was just my clinical question. I was able to put together a non-funded research because people bought in, they liked the idea, but they weren't giving me extra resources, and I didn't have a funding stream. I did go through an IRB. I had access to go through the Northwestern IRB and created a survey and sent it out to over 500 people and collected that information. And so I had to do the risks and benefits, the added burden to the people that would be taking that survey. And did create some posters based on that. And there are some publications that are coming out from that. So that's a non-funded study. For me to be able to take that study and stop what I was doing and get funding was just too much. The burden was too much on me. And so that study could be replicated, and I could do it again with funding and use that as a step to show the outcomes and some of the benefits of it, which can then also be something to help to get the funding as well. And also, if it results in the publications, that's another really good thing to say, okay, well, that's a published study. You can get that peer reviewed, and you can start to make a credible name for the fact that this is good research. Yeah, maybe we should take a chance and fund this person's study. The funded side, obviously, you have money for resources. There are extra steps. You do need to make sure you're going through that IRB. You're going to need to have a competitive proposal. The more money, the bigger the grant size, of course, the more competitive that is. But there's a lot of small funding sources out there. The sections, the IPTA, and I have actually our statement asking the board to approve a $1,000 grant through IPTA. That's exactly for this kind of thing. There's somebody who's doing small studies, having a history of funding helps you get more funding. And it also, I think, feels really nice to be able to say, I can pay for resources, whether it be some computer help or somebody to access the data and crunch out some of the details there, or someone to go and work with the intake on subjects. So some real obvious positives to the funding. And once you establish that history of funding, it can help you be considered for more funding. So any questions about that one? All right. Another piece of legislation, or actually a whole set of great legislation that I just love because it kind of defies the odds. Someone was talking about elections and how, you know, if you're not a well-funded source, a big entity, you know, what are your chances of really moving legislation? And I just love the ADA legislation because it has created huge changes in how healthcare is delivered and how society is functioning. And it's not because somebody with a big interest gave $1 million and you know, so a lot of good work here. Going back to 1973 and even prior to that. Most recently, the piece that I highlighted here is the 7% of the workforce and making a good faith effort to really try to accommodate and hire people with individuals with disabilities. So, there's our little, I don't know who this guy is. We have a little box elder here who's joining the party and he definitely wants to be seen. All right, so that's my cue to move on from the ADA. There we go. The next slide that I have here is hitting another one of those objectives, and that's talking a little bit about quantitative and qualitative research. And everyone's watching the box elder here. So quantitative research and PT. I just pulled the definition of that. So quantitative is really a little bit more removed subject and researcher. It tries to be very objective and just look at data and numbers. And so looking to test existing theories or hypotheses. So there's something that's already established. You're going to test it out. And I just went in and pulled a couple of recent examples from PT Journal. So the one is a vascular elasticity grip strength association with bone health and hemorrhagic radius in people with chronic stroke, and the implications for rehabilitation. But it's taking something that was an established hypothesis that people subscribe to and actually doing the data and taking the numbers and saying how much is this supported or not supported based on this data. The other example I pulled is the minimally clinically important difference in functional gait in older adults. And this is an interesting study because it's a nice example of quantitative research, but it also is bringing in the patient voice, which is another part of the ADA and a lot of the recent legislation, including the CORI as a funding source, which is having that patient-centered outcome research and these elements that you're seeing and even drug funding, where that patient's statement or measurement of that patient feeling like they actually derive a benefit that they noticed is now a piece of FDA approval in drug studies. That's new, and this is a great study that reflects that as well. Oh, there it is again. Because it talks about the difference between a physical therapist clinician measuring the minimally clinically important difference and noticing something that's like, that made your life better, like that did something good, and the patient's perception and rating of what was the minimally clinically important difference, which is pretty pretty good stuff, I think, for PTs, and it's really directly in our domain. So you see that ACA and that patient voice, patient-centered influence of legislation right there in that study. And it's a great example of quantitative research in PT. Contrary is the qualitative research. And again, I've got the definition up there. This one is trying to take something that is naturally occurring or something that you're observing and go through a research process to really assess that and come up with a hypothesis for something that can then be generalizable. And the recent example I pulled from here is barriers and benefits and strategies for physical activity in patients with schizophrenia. And that's also from the Journal of Physical Therapy. Any questions about that? Okay, good. So we're knocking out these objectives, which is good. The next is I have things right from our own governing body. So from APTA, the Foundation for Research, IPTA, things in the vision and mission and some of the other founding documents and basic information that shows just how much research is a part of what we do, what we should be doing, and a part of the fabric of our profession. So the first one is the ABTA vision. You see research in there. I think I folded it in a few of these slides. So our organizational values, right up there in the bullet points, is education, research, and advocacy, as well as, of course, excellence in practice. And then the next slide is the guiding principles, because a lot of the vision will reflect back and say this comes from the guiding principles. So I went to the guiding principles and I just pulled a piece, but anything I highlighted or I bolded is where research is specifically in our guiding principles. And it's in there a lot. So again, practice, education, and research are domains. It's its own domain. Physical therapists will generate, validate, and disseminate evidence and quality indicators espousing payment for outcomes, patient-client satisfaction, striving to prevent adverse events related to patient care and demonstrate continued competence. And then that last piece, researchers will collaborate with clinicians to expand available evidence, translate it into practice, which is a whole other area of research, right? Translational research, and conduct comparative effectiveness research, which we mentioned a little earlier, standardize outcome measurement, and participate in interprofessional research teams. So a lot of different great realms of research just in that statement in our guiding principles from APTA. The next one, also with IPTA, also from the guiding principles, just talks about that interprofessional research approaches that ensure evidence translates into practice and is consumer-centered. So making sure that that patient focus, and that ties again to the ACA, and that patient voice, that patient perceiving themselves the value on their life of what we're doing, and that's tied directly to research that APTA do. Okay, and one more, I think, on the APTA here. And the new knowledge, including genetics and engineering, which you do see some of this nice interprofessional crossover research, which I think we'll continue to see more and more of. If the question that we have is broad, it might have some elements that are all key, and so having just a PT do a research study might be a good start, but you also might have an opportunity to work with an engineer, with a nutritionist, with some other agency or group to really get at the pivotal pieces of your question. Again, that's right from the guiding principles. So then the APTA section on research. So how many people here are section members? Research section? Couple people online too.
Raising their hands, yes.
Matthew's got some, all right. I'm a section on research member, and I'm the Federal Affairs Liaison for the section on research. I get up people like Roskam to come into our research labs whenever I can. And Danny Davis came this year to UIC to the site, but we made sure to include the research labs in there as well. They're always amazed at how much and what depth and what kinds of research PTs do. They just have no idea. Well, they didn't. But the more we talk about it, the more they realize just what we do and just how the depth of knowledge that PTs bring. So anyway, I digress. So ABT Section Research, of course, is focused on research. It's a great section. It also funds research. It has grants. So IPTA and some of the really local stuff, there's some small amounts of money that exist. But the section also has grant funding, and some of the other sections do too. I know health policy, which is a part of the COE for the foundation, they also fund, and it's right there. If you're a HPA member, if you're a section on research member, those sections, you can't help but notice that they say there's a call for proposals because we have some grants to fund some research. It's exactly the kind of thing that somebody starting up research can get their first funding. But in here it just talks about the mission and vision, and you see that it's they want to support the mission of the section, opportunities to advance the utilization of physical therapy research, advocate for advancement of PT research, and again, facilitate that professional relationships that support. So the section I know is very open to and will fund research as interprofessional. It has PT might be the PI on the study, but doesn't mean it has to be limited to just a PT doing pure PT research. The next slide is the foundation. So the foundation, which is actually where all of this began. So Sarah and I and the other 11 folks that are part of the task force really got our start as a task force creating the web pages we'll go through because of the foundation. They reached out to us. There's our box elder, he's reading that too. But this just talks a little bit about what is the foundation. So the Foundation for Physical Therapy, that's their mission and vision. Obviously that they are focused solely on research and practice that's led by research. But a lot of money has gone out to PT researchers, and I'm very proud to say a lot of money has gone to PT researchers who are in Illinois. In fact, on our he's distracting me, sorry. On our task force, we have 2 people who are grant recipients from the Foundation for Physical Therapy. So Kristen Leach and Joseph have been grant recipients, and we also have an Illinois Marion Rafferty, who's a recent Foundation for Physical Therapy grant recipient. So great start for their research, really helped them get their way going. And I'm sure they'll go on to do big things. As if you go to the website, you'll see there's many people that they show that gave them their start, and they're now like big names in research. So so next slide, the IPCA pledge to the foundation COE. Bill Boisenhout reached out to the board, and we at a board meeting heard his request and what the foundation was wanting to do. And after that board meeting, first he presented that, and then we met as a board and discussed that. From that, we've got Mary Keene, our president of the IPTA, her statement, just talking about the unanimous appreciation and recognition that we need to support this. And we did support the COE for the Foundation for Physical Therapy. And if you look on there, you see it's the Center of Excellence for Health Services, Health Policy Research. So again, I just want to pause for that emphasis of, you see this in the ACA, you see it in the other legislation, and then you also see it in our own institutions that help foster and drive care. So policy research and PT, I'm going to say, when I was in school, that really wasn't on the radar. No one was talking about that. That's now a big piece of where we need to put the emphasis. And so the money has to be there, and also the vision and the mission of our governing bodies, of our leaders, our thought leaders, are definitely there. And IPTA, I'm very proud to say, as a board, put in $22,500 over 3 years, and we are funding all of that through our Legacy Walk campaign. So it's not through chapter dues or anything like that. It's something that we're doing solely through fundraising because we believe it's the right thing to do. All right. So with that, the IPCA Research Task Force. So this is our group, and you see I chaired the group as the chair. I'm really proud to get to know all of the folks that are president and our member service liaison, and other board members sourced. And it represents all across Illinois to the best of our ability. We really did make a concerted effort to reach out to all of the school institutions to make sure that we got to northern and southern Illinois. And if there's anybody who is feeling like, boy, my area is still not represented enough, please bring names forward. We want to represent the whole state. But we've got folks that I think do a pretty good representation of research across the state of Illinois. And we have Sharon Meyerhoff, who is the IPTA staff liaison, who is right there with us every step of the way, organizing, and there she is. Couldn't do it without her. We also include a student, so Richard Fernandez is a student PT who's been instrumental on the task force, and I know he's reached out to the student SIG and student members to try to get their input, because part of what we're doing is really reaching out to all of you. So I'm delighted that you're here. I'm hoping that you'll share the information you gleaned tonight, and we'll go through the web pages, and you'll see there's some real nitty-gritty we need feedback on for the web page launch that will go live this upcoming February. So with that, okay. So our task force was established as part of the in March of this past year, of 2014. The IPTA Board of Directors voted that we would support the foundation with $7,500 per year for 3 years, or $22,500 overall. And it's non-dues revenue. Again, it's from the legacy law. Part of that included establishing a task force that would support awareness and research in Illinois. And then, of course, the important part of the pledge and meeting our pledge year over year through fundraising. So on this slide, we've got what our charge was. So this is taken from a report that I presented to the board on behalf of our task force. And it just talks about, as we then assembled all these folks that from disparate parts of Illinois who work in our own institutions and on our own focal areas, we got together virtually, via phone, via computer, and started to email each other and look at and also source from our own perspectives what were the important things we felt we could do in a reasonable amount of time that would give the most impact for Illinois, for the IPTA and its members. With that, we made a list, and then we all went in and scored to try to get to the top 3. And it included things like the relevance, how much the general membership would gain, the time amount that it would take to get to something that would be really useful. That's how we decided on these first steps, and the web page being part of that. So we developed a proposal, we created a report, and made recommendations, and then also looked to the board for some funds. And the enhancing research opportunities and the webpage are the 2 big pieces that we're really focused on, and the moving parts that you'll see in the webpage. So at our October board meeting, Sarah was nice enough on her behalf to come up with a motion that did carry, which means it was supported. And I know the budget is just being completed for IPTA, but there is a $1,000 maximum, it can be less than that. But people can, once we put together the pieces and the criteria, you can submit a grant proposal, and there's some funds that the IPTA has made available for exactly that purpose, to say we want people doing research, we want to fund people with small grants, so that if you just look, say if I just had a little bit of resources, I have a clinical question and I'm already working on that, but I just need that little bit of extra. That's exactly what this is for. And next, we're going to talk about the big stuff, which is the web pages. So a lot of our focus has been taking our concepts and our top 3 areas of focus and creating it into something that is tangible. So all of you here will get to explore with me our test page. And come February 19th, this will launch, and it'll be a live page. When you go to the IPTA webpage, you can click on these different page pieces, and have a lot of functionality. You can also submit things to the page and glean a lot of good information from that. So just as an overview, I have a few slides here. So this talks about the IMAR, which would be a complement to IMAP. Is anyone here familiar with IMAP? IMAP program? I've seen some head nods and some no. So IMAP is Inspire, Mentor. Oh, I can never remember. Participate. Thank you. And participate. And it links very often recent grads, but sometimes it's people that are changing direction and what their area of focus is with a mentor. So you can sign on to be a mentor and say, I'm really good at PEDS or CP or stroke, and I can be a mentor to somebody. And it lets you give back to somebody who's younger in their career or again changing course. And it can be as simple as a monthly phone call. They support people who get together. They'll give you I think it's a Starbucks gift card so that you meet in person and form a little bit more of a relationship. And most of these mentor relationships can last anywhere from 6 months. It might be a short term, kind of like I just need to kind of get up and running. And other ones will last longer than that. What we came up with is this is a very well functioning program that runs very well, and people have gotten a lot of value from it. Both the mentors and the proteges are very happy, and it's in its 4th or 5th year. It's been around for a while, so it's a good program. We want to do the same thing, but for research. And the thing that might be a little bit different on that is I might want a one-on-one mentor relationship with somebody who can help me do case study research, and I want to do case study. And that could feel very much like IMAP, but it's specifically focused on research. But I also might have an area of research focus and want to get together with more than one person. So that can be more of a group talking around a topic. So it can feel a little bit different. It might not always be one-on-one. So that's the IMAR program, but it would be wedded to the IMAP program, but have a liaison that would work to maintain that page and source people saying, I'm interested to have a mentor, I'm interested to take a protege, and here's my area of expertise. So it would look to link people with what they're looking for based on our members reaching out and asking. The next is a monthly online events. So when we're doing CEs at a lot of our academic institutions, there's a lot of fellowship students and residents that are also expected to be presenting and doing things that do outreach of education. There's a list that we're creating to have, it's all about this box out there. There's only one, but he's really feisty, isn't he? The monthly online events, every month we were going to have a post, and leading up to it, there's a question box, you see a little bit lower down there, that you can submit questions, and that might also help generate other topics that we would reach out and have another presenter. And every month there'll be a live webinar, or it might be something that we've pre-recorded that we'll present, but on a monthly basis. So, and the topics will all be related to research, and they'll be guided by the members signing in and asking questions or saying, like, I'd really love you to do something on general research topics or on specifically qualitative research with brain injuries, whatever that is. The research forum is kind of like a blog, but it's really just an ongoing dialogue. So there'll be different topics that you can bring up, and then people can reply to your topic, and so it's a really nice dialogue that will go on. And again, it's for members, so you would sign into the IPTA member page and then be part of that dialogue. The question box is simply just to submit those questions, and the time period that we're suggesting is in 2 weeks someone would get back to you on that question. And that gives the staff time to have a regular check-in. Also, reach out to whatever expertise they need based on what that question is and give a good answer, or have somebody reach out to give that answer who has that expertise. And then last but certainly not least is posts. So this is where, if you're actively doing a funded or non-funded study, you would submit, and there's an online form. If I'm good enough navigating live during this, I might even take you to the form, but it's really you fill out the fields and you post that you have an active research going on. It'll include keywords, your title, a lay summary, the PI and co-PIs. It also has, if people are IPTA members, we want to give them credit. We're going to highlight the IPTA members, and certainly somebody from IPTA membership submitted on here, so you have to have your membership sign on in order to access the page. And we're working on the functionality of that so that the keyword in the search to be able to say, who's doing stroke research in Illinois? You know, where you can pull it by keyword and topic. It's something still in development. And again, where your feedback and your input of what you'd like to see more valuable comes in. So that's part of my charge tonight is I'm supposed to make sure I ask for that feedback. So we've got sticky pads and paper that you can turn in your ideas and your thoughts. But please do, and you online you can type it in. But we're looking for that from you, and also as you leave to encourage other people to send their feedback as well. With the post, we also have pages that talk about funding sources. You'll see what we have so far. It's in no way exhaustive. In fact, one of our task force members, Priska, was just saying, you know, Julie, there's some really great funding sources out there for disparity and access to healthcare research. And so there's one that I need to add. I didn't have the ability to add it prior to this meeting tonight, but it's like, okay, great, we can add that. And my sense is we're going to have different small and unique funding sources that you all might know about that we'll want to add on there, so that you can go and you can pull up and have a link to that site. The next is a potential collaborator. So one of the page links is called Potential Collaborators, and it talks about the different value add things that people can gain from the site, and it'll have other clickable links on there. The next I just talked a little bit about, this is kind of the design of the page. This is the stuff that went into it, is that IMAR, and you see it's people engaged in or wanting to explore a topic. So PTs working in clinics, as well as researchers, as well as students. It'll help join them together around a shared interest in a mentor-protege relationship. No, he's at my computer. Okay. The other functions, I think I covered these. Okay, good. So we can go on. And then, if this link is working, I've got Matthew working the website or the PowerPoint, but I don't know. Is that link going to pull up for you? If not, if you have, Matthew, if you, nope, that's not it though. That's not what I wanted it to be. That's actually just a PT posting. All right, so let's go to the next one. This learning about research, that next slide might do it. Yeah. So the one that says, yeah, that one. Wait for this to load. So this is the test page. This is the web build that we have so far. You probably recognize that photo. So research awareness and support, this will be a page. It'll look a lot like this. And as you scroll down, does it let you scroll down? It should. You have to scroll for me, sorry. So you see the task force members, and then you see some of these clickable links and also these tiles over here. So with that, it mentions IMAR, it mentions the monthly online events, mentions the research forum, and that's a dialogue where you have different topics that kind of sorts it, so then there can be back and forth questions and answers and thoughts. Posting a question in the question box is also up on there. And then you can also click on these tiles over here. So anything bolded is something that'll take you to another page. So with that, you ready to navigate with me, Matthew? Okay, you're there, okay. So we're gonna first go to our potential collaborators. So in this, some of the things you saw on the slide, again, tries to focus it by who it is that's visiting the page. If you're coming as a clinician versus a researcher versus a student or a facility, something that happened at a facility. Any of those bold areas, again, are those links, so they're hot links. Learning about research, that was that page we just came from. Clinical question, that's another link. projects that might be a good fit. So those go to the research posting page. Researchers, it's got share your active projects. That again goes to the research post page. And the funding options is yet another link. So that links to the page that lists that. So let's go ahead and follow some of these links. And I think the best one to go to first is the funding options. So under researchers, that last bullet, let's go to that one. And so for right now, this is what we've created for you to view and give your feedback. So just in alphabetical order, it's truly just a list of sites and sources for funding, and right from their website, we just try to pull a little bit of information. Might not be the most PT-friendly focus, but at least it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. So AHRQ, the DOD, Michael J. Fox, National MS Society. So just a number of specific sites. We'll continue to add to this, and you might be looking through this going like, oh, I don't see the three that I would look at. Please jot those down before you leave, because we'll make sure we add them. And we have a little bit of time between now and February. So going back to that last page we were on. You ready? There we go. We're going to go ahead and look at post-professional education. So let's just say I'm somebody going, you know, I think I might be interested in research. And I heard that IPCA website now has some good information. So this is something that you probably yourself, or you've known somebody who has faced this question and go like, who do I ask? Like, what are the options out there? We've got the links to residencies and fellowships, to clinical specialization, and to terminal degrees. So it's just a one nice place right on your IPTA website to help you explore things. And we're trying to create it where it's very Illinois focused, at least to start with, because it's all about, well, what are the resources we have right here. So if you click on any one of those, it'll give you more detail. And there's also some national data that we put in there, but it just links right to those sources, because then they'll update those, and that's all good. So this talks about how many programs there are, and what's the difference between residency and fellowship. And then there's lists that go to the ABPT free FFE.org and have that list where you can search by state. So do you guys want to go into detail with that, or should I go through more of the pages? Okay. So, but that's fellowships and residencies. And then if you go, if we go back, let's go into clinical specialization or terminal degrees. There we go. So the more information on some of the specialization and how many people are out there that have that specialization is pretty interesting stuff, I think. And then we'll go back and we'll go to those terminal degrees, which is another thing that comes up a lot. And that lists to some of the different terminal degrees out there. And we've started listing the information on programs that exist in Illinois with those. What? Feedback?
No, we know Alex.
Oh, okay, yeah. And interestingly, and this is one of the things that we're struggling with now, and we will get to an answer, is I think we pulled this from ABT's website, and it's a list of education programs, but it's outdated because David Brown, anyone who knows David knows he's in Alabama now, heading up their PhD program, which he really helped them get moving. So at least that part I know is outdated. So having a way that we're going to create and maintain and have people giving us what we need when it changes is part of having this be a thriving web page. I think the fact that the value and the fact that it's local to Illinois and there's academic and research programs in Illinois are part of it and the build of it, the value of saying, oh, we need to make sure IPTA knows we've changed that the person who runs our PhD, or we've just added a new PhD. And the latest one I keep hearing is that people are adding PhDs in rehabilitation science. So it might not have been there last year, and now it is. I think we can work with the schools to know that they would update us, and then maybe ABTA can use our list, which would be kind of cool. I kind of see that happening. I think that could happen. Okay, so we'll go back. And the mentoring opportunities is the IMAR page. And did I skip anything? How are we doing on time? And it's like 6:55, so I do want to leave time for questions and feedback. So the IMAR, this just gives a little bit of that background, and as I described before, this is similar to IMAP. It's just got a research focus, and it might not be limited to just a one-on-one relationship. It might have a little bit different of a feel. And I also think the type of folks that might be interested in being a protege may be a little bit different than the typical IMAP protege who's signing up now, which tends to be someone early career, just getting out of school. Some people, while they're finishing up in their last year, are reaching out, which is really smart. But I think there's great opportunities throughout your professional career to reach out and have mentoring, and this would be a formal way to do that around research. There's a form, but I don't know that we can pull it up, but I don't think we need to unless people are really interested of how to do the research post. Do we have the post page, Matthew? Do you have that? It's,
Go back to learning about research, Matthew, and see if it's under there.
and this is the part of the page that we actually had about 11 people submit posts to be part of the test page. So let's see if I can pull it up and pull these out. There's lots of help. There's a way to get to it. So if you click that hotline contact researchers who might have, I think you go to potential collaborators button. Any one of these, so projects that might be a good fit, that or that contact researchers have research agendas. That hot link should bring us there too. Yeah. Okay. Now, right now, this is not what we envisioned we wanted it to look like, but working within the shell and the pages as our contracts and everything currently are, this is what we could come up with in time for this. But if you click, so Kat Riley is a person helping us design the web pages. She actually took all of the posts that I compiled and put them in. So they're just showing that she put them in and what date she put them in. This is one that I was working on with Dr. Heineman. And so in there you've got the IPTA member, so you've got your title, the principal investigator, an email that she's put that in there, the phone, how to contact that person, and then who are the co-investigators. And you see I'm on there, and the fact that I've been an IP, I was proud that it's since 1990. And then a lay summary to say, well, what exactly does that mean? That title is compelling, but I don't know if it's exactly what I think it is. Gives you a little bit more information. And then a link to the study and recruitment page. So it lets you have that portal right in there. And I don't see on there keywords, but on the bottom, there also will be keywords. And if functionally the IPTA webpage doesn't allow us to have, where I can type in keywords and pull up just that list, then what we'll end up doing is having like an Excel that can get uploaded, and then you would be able to export the Excel and do by column, or call for help. That would be question marks. Could somebody sort and just pull the ones that are on this topic? Would be another legitimate thing to do as well. So that's a little bit of the start of what we have. We also have the research forum that if you want to see that in action, we can go to that. I think we're okay, and we're running out of time. This forum's all work pretty similar. You've got your talk topic, and then you can see the topic, and then you can open it and see the dialogue and add to it. So with that, I want to thank you all for being such a good audience and being here, listening so intently with me and my little box elder friend, and learning about the research and the good work of the task force. I would like now to hear your thoughts and ideas and feedback on the page and the work that the task force is doing for you, membership. Yes.
So like, I guess I don't want to be a lead researcher, but I would like to do research. So I guess if there's a link that says looking for someone to participate in the research study in terms of collecting data or something like that, I don't know if there'll be a link for that.
Okay.
Or
Somebody
or even if there's a link that says looking for stroke survivors,
looking for
with needs,
subjects.
yeah, subjects, and that way people can recommend. I don't know. If
Yeah,
that's
we have-
something-
We've started to develop forms as far as, under collaborators, people who are interested in helping with research projects, and usually the primary investigator doesn't have to be that person. That's the primary investigator looking for people to help with that data collection. But also there's another form for a patient or client participant as well that's being developed too.
Right, so for clients that might want to be considered for research studies, and these things exist in different entities, so like you might know of or have steered patients to say, Northwestern has a really great patient portal where you can put your information to be considered for any studies that you would match. So you're in like now a searchable database for that entity. But you might want to say, well, run out of studies that they're interested in, and I'm impatient. I want to be considered for more stuff. That entity doesn't link you to other, no one else can see that. This would be something that through IPTA people would have another place to go to. And we could also post links to those specific entities that use portals to have a place that you can have a repository. The other would be, like if you're saying, I'm interested in doing data collection on a study to work as part of a research team in addition to my full-time clinical work, right? That would be a good question box or forum question. And there also would be a forum to let us collect that data. The value of, how many hits you get or how much people are looking, and it's becoming a place that people are like, I'm looking for someone to work on a research study. I'm going to the IPTA webpage. My feeling is that we will grow into that, but the other part is that it's not free. It's got some positive redundancies built into it, which means that going through the question box, going in the forum and having that dialogue, you're not going to use your network where people will be looking for you. Even if someone doesn't come and visit, somebody might be a PI, not be an IPTA member, not be able to go in there and see that, but the network will be able to reach out and say, hey, are you looking for research staff help, that you need like 1 day a week, or you need them to be doing evenings 3 days a week or once a month. There would be this would definitely support that. That's exactly one of the things that this is supposed to do for us.
And I see that all the time, So certain people want to be the one that fills out the forms and does the data analysis, and some people just have the question and want to be involved, but they don't want to be the one doing the data analysis, but they want to have a part of it. And there's a role for both, and both need the other. So it's an important thing to have out there.
And that's also where IMARC can be pretty exciting. So you might say, I want to be partnered with a mentor who does a lot of research or is very fluid with the different studies going on and who needs what kind of help. And it might be specific to just neuro or just outpatient manual therapy or whatever that topic is. But that's one of the things that IMARC can be yet another piece that this would help support that. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? Feedback? Anybody online? You guys still with me? Do you have anybody there? Okay, good. Some thumbs ups.
We do have a question.
Good.
As from Amy, as a new Illinois resident and chapter member, I would like to thank Julie and the organizers of this meeting for the option to be able to join virtually. I also applaud the chapter for creating this task force webpage and moving forward with the research initiative at the state level. So not a question,
Thank you,
but more of a
Amy.
comment.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have you in Illinois and interested in research and a section member. I also like to put a plug in for the section. If people know or are students, this is one of the sections that's actually free for student membership. So it's a great way to try it out for free before you graduate. I don't think there's a better value out there. And there's some really cool stuff, including grant funding. We've got our $1,000 grant. Theirs is, I think, $5,000 and $10,000 grants. And there might be other ones as well. Yeah, thank you. It's good to have you here. Anybody else? If not, I know it's been a busy day for all of us. Again, thank you all for being here. Please do email and send questions, feedback, comments, either to the IPTA at ipta.org, or you can email me. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.